So good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for joining. It's great to see that so many of you have joined us today to learn about how to supercharge your sales with Hubspot and video engagement. You guys are in for a treat. This session is loaded with some really great content. And by the end of it, you'll learn how to map your video content to the buyer's journey. You'll also learn how to create your first 1-minute video, and then how to use Hubspot for distribution so that you can take those videos and push them out to different platforms. So I'm really excited, and I hope you guys are too. And we want this to be interactive. So if you have questions, hit that Q&A button. You can type your questions in there and we'll answer them as we're moving throughout the presentation. So let's go ahead and get started. Before we jump into it, I'd like to give our hosts the opportunity to introduce themselves. So Maria, we'll go ahead and start with you.
Hi, everyone. My name is Maria Joyner. I am the co-founder and marketing automation practice lead at FounderScale. FounderScale is a B2B sales agency. We work with founder-led B2B technology companies and help them increase sales through sales engagement events such as webinars, podcasts, and digital events. I am located in Costa Rica. I live near the Arenal volcano, and I have an 8-month son. I'll pass it on to you, Liz.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you, Maria. Thank you, FounderScale, for having me for this panel this morning. It's exciting. I'm Liz J. Simpson, everyone. I'm the founder of Stimulus. We are a sales consultancy. We help professional service firms increase client acquisition through digital sales strategies and LinkedIn strategies. And I'm also the founder of the Big Money Movement, which is my mission-driven organization where we help women experts secure higher paying corporate clients.
Hello, everyone, and thank you, Maria and FounderScale, for having myself and Liz, because this is a great opportunity. I'm so passionate about video. You will find that out very, very soon. My name is Monique Johnson. I'm located in Atlanta, Georgia, and I own a marketing and video production agency called Live Video Lab. And so we show businesses how to utilize the amazing medium of video to get customers and clients online and integrating it with social media. So I'm really, really excited for today's presentation, and thank you again for having me.
Love it. So before we get into talking about supercharging your sales efforts with video, I love this image. I think it's hysterical. In this time and age, when I talk to individuals about leveraging digital sales strategies or leveraging video, I think so many of us think about spam, right? All of the people on LinkedIn who are connecting and pitching, or the individuals who are sending you emails that don't resonate with you. So I think we first have to start with the problem. And the problem I see from so many organizations is that they're wanting to leverage timely tactics to increase their sales activities. But we find that with our buyer being on email, with our ability to access our buyer via phone, via social messaging, there's so many different tactics to focus on. And far too many organizations are focused on the tactics without making sure that they have the foundations in place, which is making sure that you have a cohesive multi-channel strategy. When you're looking to engage with buyers, just recording a 1-minute video and sending it to a prospect is not enough. You have to start with your positioning strategy and making sure that we first have a deep understanding of our buyer's journey. Studies find that 67% of the buyer's journey is done before they ever communicate with the salesperson, and it's done digitally. And most buyers now are self-empowered to educate because they're looking at avoiding a salesperson. They want information when they want it, and they want to control the buying process. So it is in our best interest to first have a deep understanding of the buyer's journey, where they are, what they need, and then align a strategy where we're making sure that we're delivering the insights that they need at each stage of the process. And I believe on the next slide, we're going to show you a visual of that to make sure that it that we connect the dots here. So typically we find that if we look at the buyer's journey, right, most of us are aware of the awareness stage, consideration stage, and the decision stage. So the goal should be to identify what is happening with my buyer at each stage. What are the questions that they're asking themselves? What is the information that they're consuming? What action step are they looking at taking at each of these stages? And instead of focusing on tactics, we need to think about, how do I create a reason to engage, right? So the difference between spam and an effective sales strategy is that we're providing value. So the buyer perceives what we're delivering to them, the video that we're delivering to them is valuable, and therefore that value builds the connection for an authentic relationship. So you first want to look at the buyer's journey, identify a strategy, and identify what's a compelling reason to engage with our buyer at each stage of the journey. And we'll go a little bit deeper into that in the next slide as well. So when you're working with your marketing and sales team, and this is definitely, if you have a marketing and sales department of your organization, this is definitely where marketing and sales need to be aligned. Also, if you have individuals in sales, this is perfect, because this is for those who are on the front lines, who are interacting with the buyer, to come together with marketing and say, what are we seeing? What's happening in conversations with our buyers? What are they concerned about? So you would simply go through a template like this, where you're looking at, okay, the awareness stage, what are they thinking or feeling when they're just aware that they have a problem and they're trying to distinguish what the next best steps are? What is the next action step that they're taking? Are they consuming articles? Are they watching videos? What are they doing at this step? And once you complete this, this will then give you a sound foundation, so that when you're creating videos, when you're connecting with your buyers, you know that you're providing value-rich content, and it's that give, give, give mentality. So you want to give, give, give before you ask for that transaction. And then we can move to the next slide, where I think Maria will go deeper into a specific example.
Yeah, let's take a look at what a real life buyer's journey looks like. So this is a real life buyer's journey from one of the organizations we work with at Founder Scale, called Entrepreneurs Organization. And they work with founders, majority shareholders, and CEOs of organizations that have more than $1 million in revenue a year. So let's actually walk through what the awareness, consideration, and decision stages look like. So in the awareness stage, a business owner is just now going to be aware that they have a business or a growth challenge. So for example, that challenge might be, my business has flatlined, what should I do? So the first thing I'm going to probably do as a business owner is I'm going to go to Google and start Googling, my business has flatlined, what should I do? How do other leaders overcome stagnant growth? And I'm going to start doing research on how to solve my business issues, how to get business help. What is business coaching? What is a local business group? So I'm actually going to start doing these Google searches. And this is a great thing for you to do, to put yourself in your buyer's shoes and think through, what are they going to be Googling? So this is what I'm looking at, the awareness stage. I realize that I have a problem, but I don't have any idea of any organization that exists, how to solve that problem. I'm just looking at Google now. So now, when we go into the consideration stage, I have clearly defined my challenge. My challenge is that my business is capped by my own expertise. So what am I going to do about that? How can I overcome that? How can I grow? And so now I'm going to start researching different options on how other business leaders have overcome stagnant growth, how they have tapped into resources to, go from, $1 million to $3 million, or $3 million to $10 million. So I'm going to start looking at that, and I may be listening to podcasts of other B2B founders to see what they did, looking at expert guides, 10 ways to overcome business growth challenges. And I'm going to start Googling business coach, business coach in Atlanta, Georgia, executive training in Atlanta, Georgia, peer group in Atlanta, Georgia. And so I'm at the stage now where I'm trying to find out what my options are to clearly to solve my problem. And so once I've done research on finding out what my options are, now I'm moving into the decision stage. So I know that my problem is business stagnation, and I know that the solution is getting executive training or getting a business coach. So now I am going to start looking for those solutions and those options. So I'm going to start comparing what is entrepreneurs organization versus YPO versus Vistage. And so I'm going to actually start looking at the different options and solutions I have to solve my problem, and some comparison guides, a test drive I may want to take a test drive to see, is this organization a right fit for me? What are the benefits? How is this organization going to help me? And so I'm in a stage now where I am almost ready to buy, but not quite there yet. And so maybe I need to hear testimonials from members. Maybe I need to hear reviews of how other people have benefited from this organization. And so as I go through these different stages, awareness, consideration, and decision, as an organization, I will actually want to produce content that attracts each one of these stages. So for example, one of the best types of content to produce to help move a buyer through awareness, consideration, and decision is video content. And I'm going to let Liz explain why video is so effective at moving a buyer through the journey.
Love it. Absolutely. So if we look at the next slide, we'll look at the benefits of video. So what we know right now, organizations like Edelman do a global trust index. And what we know is that consumer trust is at an all-time low. The more that your buyer has access to information, the more skeptical that they are. So we're looking for a way to stand out in the marketplace, and most importantly, to build trust, because we know that trust is essentially what is going to shorten the sales cycle and move your buyer through that buyer's journey. So when we look at video is perfect because next to face-to-face interaction, video helps you to build that emotional connection with the buyer. It's the foundations never go out of style. So when we look at the fact that people make emotional buying decisions that they justify with logic, right? So initially they're making an emotional buying decision. And when we look at what the buyer's journey looks like and what it looks like to make during the decision-making process, we know that the first sell is you're selling yourself. So your client-facing team members are essentially at the front lines because that is the first decision that your buyer is making. So when you can have a face from your organization and they're sending a video to your buyer, essentially now that person says, they're building that emotional connection. They're seeing a real face. They're deciding if they know, like, and trust that face. And if they do, now we've essentially shortened the buying cycle and we've built that emotional connection. Also, we know that proximity is power. When we're looking at a crowded marketplace, you want to maintain top of mind awareness. That is essentially one of the cornerstones of marketing, is making sure that we're maintaining top of mind awareness and proximity, because only about 3% might be ready to buy when we first interact with them. So we want to make sure that we take up that mental space. Although so many people talk about video, I noticed that most human beings just have an aversion to just jumping on video and doing it. So you're still in that early adopter cycle, where if you're someone who leverages video, you're going to stand out because not a lot of your competitors are leveraging it for sales. Inbound and outbound. This is one of my favorite topics to talk about. I love to be efficient. I believe in building key pieces for your organization, for your marketing and sales assets, and being able to replicate those assets throughout your organization. So you're not having to constantly be on the content hamster wheel building content. So if we look at your marketing and sales efforts, I do want to first delineate between inbound and outbound efforts. And if you're new to those phrases, I'll just give a quick synopsis. So your inbound efforts are what you do to attract, right? You're pulling people in. And so your inbound efforts are your content. So if you're doing video that's more educational, right? How to leverage this to achieve this, right? Those are inbound assets where you're educating the market, right? Your outbound efforts are where you're more pushing, right? So it's more you're pushing your information, your business onto your buyer. I kind of don't like the phrase push because I think it has a negative connotation. The way I look at it is my outbound efforts are where I'm jumping in the driver's seat and I'm going out to build those authentic relationships with my buyer. So that is when I might send a one-to-one video to my buyer. So if we look at, just to wrap it up in a bow, the benefits of video are they give you proximity, they give you top of mind awareness with your buyer, they shorten the sales cycle, it creates that emotional connection with your buyer, and you can use one video and you can repurpose it for both your inbound and outbound efforts. So without further ado, let's jump into making those videos. So I'm going to hand it over to Monique.
Thanks, Liz. So when it comes to making your first video, this is the order of importance. I know some of you may have thought differently, probably think that the camera or something else needs to come first. But in order of importance, when it comes to making your first video, it's audio, lighting, and then the camera. Now, the reason why, in which we're going to go into detail in just a moment, I kind of want to just kind of piggyback of what Liz just mentioned, the whole idea of being averse to wanting to do video in the first place, the whole idea of resistance. And by looking at this list, this is actually taking resistance to a lower level on both sides, because it's a two-way street when it comes to video. It's not only you as the business creating it, but also the audience and potential customers that are looking at you. So you want to lower the resistance when it comes to someone seeing you for the very first time, especially at the beginning of the buyer's journey. So in order to make that happen, audio is very important. If you don't have clear audio and people can't really hear you, or it's really muffled, or you're really soft, or there's like these big popping noises, you're increasing the resistance of someone to even just look at what you want to say or what it is that you're trying to do. And then lighting just takes it to another level, and then camera. So let's go on to the next slide as I kind of go into detail as to what I mean and how you're able to decrease the resistance for not only yourself, but for the audience's view. So again, video, as far as number one is audio. Audio makes or breaks your video, because you can literally have the worst looking video in the world, and if your audio is on point, and especially if you're creating amazing content, people will stay. If you just look at some of the, especially YouTube back in the day when we didn't have the amazing smartphones or amazing cameras, a lot of videos got views because just even look at, for instance, personal development people like a Jim Rohn, right? He's not even alive today, but there's so many old videos. But because the audio is great, people are sticking to it to look at it. So if you look at the graphic to the left, I'm not sure if you can, but it's just a brief kind of synopsis as to how important it is. And the number one ranking thing is clear audio quality, and the narrator is easy to understand. Okay. And so I have some additional quotes for you, including one from myself. Again, audio makes or breaks your video, because you could have the worst looking one. No one's going to stick around if they can barely hear you, or if there's distracting noise. Again, that's increasing the resistance. Okay. Now with the next slide, we're going to talk about lighting. Okay, so with lighting will transform your videos or your stream. So whether this is you doing pre-recorded video or going live. And what I'm sharing with you on this diagram is just a basic diagram. You do not have to do this, or if it looks like foreign science to you, but this is the typical what you call 3-point basic lighting. Normally what you would want to do is have a lighting source that is 45-degree angle on both sides of you, and then what you call a backlight to highlight your head. So like right now where I am, I have one light right up here, and then I'm using a window as the other 45-degree angle. If you don't even have lights, what I just recommend is make sure you face your lighting source. Never have the lighting source behind you, because that's when you appear dark, okay? And people won't be able to see you. And again, bad lighting can make any great camera look average, but when you have great lighting, it's amazing. And if any of you are just relying on just your smartphone, the more light, the better, because of the camera lenses that we have on phones and things like that. They're very limited. And so they don't have the extra features and things to kind of change when it comes to the lighting. So always use as much light as possible. And then just below there's just a brief screenshot of me using one of my old cameras right now. And I'm just using great lighting to make it look really good. Now on the next slide, we're going to talk about equipment. When it comes to your camera, you already have it. don't worry about professional equipment. In fact, I'm a huge advocate of you got to put in the work, put in the hours before you can upgrade and do professional equipment. So you don't deserve the professional equipment right now, but you do have a smartphone. Right now we're at a constant war between the Samsung Galaxies and the Apple iPhones. Okay. And so if you have a smartphone, no matter which kind that you have, you already have it. And then another type, I like to say one and a half, is your computer, your webcam. So if you don't have one, or if you don't even like the type of webcam you have, of course you can get an external webcam. I definitely recommend something like Logitech, but a webcam that at least records in HD, but you already have it. And just by utilizing what we just discussed, as far as making sure you have a good audio, and I do have recommendations, but for the sake of this presentation, I will hand it over to Maria and Founder Scale for additional resources of suggestions that I have. But if you just make sure you're using at least headphones for audio or a microphone, have good lighting where you're at least facing your lighting source, and then lastly, just using your phone or computer, guess what? That decreases the resistance of you not wanting to do it. You do not have the excuse because you don't have the fancy camera, the fact that you don't have lights. You have a window that you can face. And then lastly, with the audio, just at least being close to your camera or at least having headphones, that's decreasing the resistance of you not wanting to do video. All right, so on to the next slide. I want to talk about, in which, we've kind of prefaced this whole thing, both with Maria and Liz, talking about the customer buyer's journey. And what I want to talk to you guys about is, right now we just talked about creating your first video, but it's like, okay, what types of video? How can I go about do this? Let's talk about how we can consistently decrease the resistance of wanting to do video. So what I want to introduce to you is what we call the 3x3 video grid model. And in fact, I first came across this by Dennis Yu, and he talks about this for doing video ads. But I decided to take ownership of this and say, wait a second, we could actually do this for a whole content marketing machine. And what this focuses on is creating specific videos for each stage of the buyer in the buyer's journey. So we talked about awareness, consideration, and decision. So with that said, you want to start off with creating videos that talks about your why. Why? Well, as Liz stated, you're first presenting yourself. By talking about your why, you're talking about the stories. Storytelling evokes emotion, which leads the person closer to buying, okay? Because as Liz stated, emotion, when someone is buying, it starts with emotion, then logic comes in. Then as we go down to the consideration part of the buyer's journey, you talk about the how. The how is showcasing your expertise, showing people how to do something, how to tutorials, things like that. And then lastly, the decision part is the what. What is it that you have to offer? Now, the reason why we have this in this specific grid model is because as you present one specific video, and the key here, these are 1-minute videos, and 1-minute videos convert the best on the LinkedIn platform. So 1-minute videos, with the very first why video, how you work with this grid is it goes across and down. So you're working yourself across and down with each buyer, and we'll talk more about that and how you can do that utilizing the amazing platform of Hubspot to make this happen. But let's just say with video 1, the person who views that, you're going to show them video 4 and 5 from how, and work them down and work across and down. And so we wanted to share with you how by doing this, you have a content strategy. You don't ever have to worry about what kind of videos do I need to give a specific buyer as they're going through your sales funnel. Now with the next slide, I just kind of want to give you a brief synopsis of how to structure this. So this is just a breakdown of the why video of 1 minute. So in the blue section, you would dedicate 45 seconds to, the purple section 15 seconds to, and the last part, the green section, 5 seconds to. So with the why video, again, it's all about telling your stories. So that very first 45 seconds, you're going straight into the story. Okay, you're not going to even hesitate. So it's great to do that by starting it off and saying when I was, and then you put in the hook, the statement. There's a breakdown of how to make this happen. And then once you tell your story, you wrap it up by stating whatever lesson or whatever belief statement that you believe based on the story you just stated. And that's where you're going to dedicate the 15 seconds, where it's just like an emotional transition, because you're putting all the emotion in the first initial 45 seconds. And then you're going to end that why video with, I help X achieve Y. All right. So that's how we can wrap it all together. People will know where you're coming from. They feel more connected to you. You are more relatable to them. And then they're anticipating, what is next? How can this person solve my problem? Now, in the next slide, because, Liz really broke us down. And I love how she talked about being in the car and going out there and just telling you the difference between inbound and outbound examples. We just wanted to provide with you guys a brief kind of list of types of videos that can help. So we're going to focus here just on the outbound examples. So for instance, how-to videos, which is in the middle part of the sales funnel, 2 to 3 minutes, a lead magnet video where you're providing some sort of free resource so that you can collect their email address and other pertinent contact information. An event or webinar promo. The fact that you're here on this this webinar is because there was some sort of promotion that was given out by Founder Scale, and also customer testimonials. To me, that is the most important video that any business should have. I like to call them success stories, but literally showing people where they started from A and where they are now and how you help them to get there is so powerful and can actually be used on any stage of the customer's journey. And then lastly, an expert interview, in which Founder Scale, and I know Maria, they're experts in doing podcast style type of videos. And so by doing all of these things, you can incorporate, again, that 3x3 video grid model, and then using specific examples to make sure that it all happens. And now with that said, let's talk about the video grid model. I'm going to hand it off to Maria to talk about using Hubspot to make it all work together.
Thanks, Monique. So on this next slide, we're going to look at the 3x3 video grid model, and I'm going to talk about how we can actually use Hubspot to tie all of our efforts together. So when we're talking about outbound sales, like Liz said, that's like getting in a car and going out to talk to your prospects. So things that would be considered outbound would be an outbound LinkedIn message, an outbound email message. Like Monique said, sending a video outbound that requests email address or contact information. And so you want to have an idea of a couple of things: the effectiveness of your efforts, the activity, how frequently are you reaching out to your contacts? And then you, of course, want to keep track of your prospects and where they are in the buyer's stage. So depending on the HubSpot platform you use or the marketing automation platform you use, all of these things that I'm going to talk about are generally available regardless of the current platform that you are on. We're a HubSpot partner, so we're big fans of HubSpot. I know Monique and Liz are both inbound alumni, so let's look at sequences. So I'm a huge fan of sequences. It's great for sales outreach. A sequence looks like a one-to-one email that can be automated. And so you could, based on where your prospect is in the journey, if they're in this awareness stage, you could actually set up an automated sequence to go out that sends out your 3 why videos. And let's say your prospect takes the action or it gives you an indication that they've now moved on to the consideration stage. And you could have that automatically trigger another sequence that goes out that sends your 3 videos and the consideration stage. It talks about how your product or your service is going to help your prospect. And then finally, in the decision stage, this is, testimonials, product comparison guides, expert interviews. I think this is a great opportunity to really help, move the buyer a little bit further along into the decision stage. And the saying is, the fortune is in the follow-up. So if they're in the decision stage and they haven't made a decision, setting up alerts using the lead nurturing workflows to send your sales reps or SDRs alerts that, hey, this buyer was in the decision stage and they haven't been contacted in the past 30 days. So how about you go on ahead and send them a follow-up? So sequences are a really great tool to use. And it's a great way to also calculate conversions. Another big benefit of HubSpot is we want to know if all of these activities are driving revenue at the end of the day. We could do all the sales we want in the world, but if it doesn't drive revenue, it's really not really effective. And so HubSpot can help you keep track of, from that first engagement, that first time somebody came to your website, viewed a web page, to the purchase. So you could actually use HubSpot to track back your customer revenue and the activities that you did to drive that revenue. And you can identify which of these activities, which of these sequences, which of these email marketing workflows are the most effective, and double down on those. So it gives you a great opportunity to test out what works, test out what doesn't work. And what I like in particular is that HubSpot has a great integration with Vidyard. So it's super simple. You can Google Vidyard. It's a great tool to send videos. It's similar to a Loom. And it has a great direct integration. And so these videos, they are embedded seamlessly into the email messages, as well as into landing pages, and reporting. So there's some great reporting tools. One of the metrics that we like to look at Founder Scale is what percentage of contacts in our database were actually contacted by a human in the past 30 days. And we try to have that percentage up in the 40 and 50 percentile. And when that starts dropping, that's an indication that we need to go back through our database and start interacting with these contacts, because what's the purpose of having 10,000 contacts in the database if no one is reaching out to them? And so it's a great way to connect all of your efforts. And on top of what HubSpot has and integrated into the platform, there's also some really great integrations and plugins that you can tap into for your lead generation efforts that Liz is going to talk about.
Awesome. So if we move to the next slide, let's go ahead and talk about those other integrations. So clearly, I am very strategic minded. I think strategy comes first and foremost. But once we have strategy out of the way, I'm like, how can I work smart, not hard? How can we make this easy and efficient, right? So technology is still our best friend. We just want to make sure we don't put technology before strategy. So I just want to share 3 of my favorite integrations that integrate seamlessly with HubSpot and LinkedIn. We've not talked much about LinkedIn, but if we're looking at the B2B space, clearly 80% of B2B leads are sourced through LinkedIn, and it's the #1 place where professionals go for best practices and industry insights. So when we look at leveraging video, one of my favorite tools when I'm looking at using video is, we talked about initially with strategy that you want it to create a reason to engage with your buyer. So meaning that the video that I share with them has to be timely and relevant to what they're thinking about in that stage of the buyer's journey. And one of my favorite tools to organize my efforts is LinkedIn Sales Navigator. LinkedIn Sales Navigator has CRM capabilities, and I use that to organize my contacts. So if I'm prospecting, if I'm following a cadence, I can also organize those leads and lists in Sales Navigator. Sales Navigator integrates seamlessly with HubSpot. So if you are using LinkedIn Sales Navigator to identify who my leads are that I want to contact, make sure that I'm messaging them, Sales Navigator is where you can organize lists. And I can say, for whatever stage 1 for how you prospect, for me, I use the TikTok cadence. That's a main cadence that I use when I'm looking at my outbound efforts. So I've built a list for each stage of that cadence so that anytime I know where they are in that cadence, and I can see that in Sales Navigator, and then also that can integrate with HubSpot. So if I'm pulling reporting, or if you're pulling reporting to look at your team, you can say what's happening with John Doe, and you'll be able to see that integration. Now, furthermore, I'm going to move to the top right, which is link match, because since I'm talking about Sales Navigator, I'm talking about HubSpot, people are like, oh my gosh, well, I use LinkedIn to identify my buyers and to message them, but then I'm using HubSpot for my CRM and marketing automation. How do I make sure that the two are talking to each other without doing a whole bunch of extra manual administrative tasks? Because if you are a salesperson like myself, one of the Achilles heels of salespeople is we will hunt, but do not give us any paperwork to fill out. We do not like filling out paperwork. So any less steps, the better. So Link Match is absolutely amazing because what it does is Link Match integrates HubSpot with Sales Navigator and LinkedIn. So what I can do is if I pull up John Doe's profile in LinkedIn and I decide that I want to take notes on it, or if I now want to create an opportunity from it, Link Match integrates. And what it will do is if John Doe is not in my HubSpot CRM, there'll be an X next to his name. And if he is a contact in my CRM, there'll be a green check next to his name. So if there's an X next to his name and he's not in the CRM, I can simply click that X and Link Match will auto populate the contact. So it'll pull all of the contact information from his LinkedIn profile and it will open up the deal stages that you have in HubSpot. So I can add him to a deal stage. I can turn him into an opportunity. I can add any notes. And when I click save, Link Match will take all of that information and auto populate it into HubSpot. So that way you don't have to worry about there being lack of quality leads or information in HubSpot or things of that nature. Finally, bottom right. So we have Sales Navigator, which we're using so that we identify our prospects, have contact information for them. We have Link Match, which is going to integrate that with HubSpot. But one of my mentors said, communication is more than just what comes out of your mouth. It's being responsible for how it lands in the lap of the other party. And when we talk about marketing and sales, we're always talking about value. You want to make sure you provide value to your prospects. You want value-rich videos. And it's like, what is this word value, right? It's this ambiguous word, kind of like beauty is in the eye of the beholder. So we want to make sure that we understand the personality profile of our buyer to make sure the way that we deliver the communication in our video is going to resonate with them. And Crystal Knows is just a genius platform. So crystalknows.com, when you go to LinkedIn and you hover over somebody's profile, Crystal Knows will allow you to see their personality type. So we're referring to like a DISC profile, Myers-Briggs. And what it will show you, as you can see to the bottom right, not only will it show you their profile, but it will show you how their personality differs from yours, and it will coach you on what talking tracks to use. So if I'm going to deliver a 1-minute video and I know that I want to pitch John Doe, I can choose pitch, and Crystal Knows will say, make sure that you use, short, brief sentences. Make sure you focus on the details, avoid fluff, right? So it will help me to tailor how I communicate in that video to make sure that it will be timely, relevant, and give that prospect a reason to engage. So those are just 3 of my favorite integrations with HubSpot as well as LinkedIn. Next slide.
Yeah, so let's put this all together. Now we're giving you all who are on the webinar an action item. Let's just rip the Band-Aid off and send your first video. So what you all should do now is, if you don't already have the LinkedIn app on your phone, the LinkedIn app actually has a native video integration through the messaging platform. So you can quickly search the mobile app store, search LinkedIn and download the app. And then almost everybody who's on this webinar, I have already sent you a LinkedIn connection. So if you'd like to accept that, you can just send me your first LinkedIn video and let us know if you have any questions about the webinar or doing video. And I look forward to getting that video from all of you. Now, I believe we left a little bit of time for questions. So if you all have any questions about how to make your first video, how to utilize HubSpot to tie this all together, or how to map the video to the buyer's journey, just let us know. We will wait a few minutes for questions.
Yes, so the question is, can I tell you guys about the TikTok cadence? I realized I kind of just threw that in there. It might have stepped into a can of worms. So when we're looking at automation and leveraging tools like video, like Maria spoke to earlier, is that you want to look at the buyer's journey, and then you can use tools like sequences through HubSpot. And what sequences basically is you're considering, okay, at each stage of the buyer's journey, what are they considering? And how do I make sure that I'm delivering value to them in a timely manner? I call that a cadence. So a cadence is like a play. It's like a rhythm for how I'm going to interact with that buyer. So you might have many different deal plays in your tool belt. So you might have a sequence for, someone attended my webinar, and here are the sequence of content that I'm going to deliver to them. I might have a sequence for, here are centers of influence in my network that I want to build relationship with. So here's my play for how I'm going to interact with them. So the TikTok cadence is one of the plays that I use in my tool belt that I use for cold contacts that I want to take from cold to a discovery conversation. And so it's a 6-step cadence. So that first T stands for target accounts. So I first want to identify who are the individuals that I want to build relationship with. That's who's in the target accounts column. Once I identify those accounts, the I is for introduction, or to invite. So I want to then invite them to connect with me on LinkedIn, because this play starts on LinkedIn. So this will be a LinkedIn cadence. The C is connect. So I cannot send the video message I want to send to them until they've accepted my invite. So the C is they're sitting in my connection list until they accept that connection. The T is for thank them. So as soon as I see I've received that connection invite and it's accepted, I'm then going to leverage video to send a video to them through LinkedIn. And that video is just a thank you. I'm not pitching. They've seen my LinkedIn profile. They know who I am. I'm just looking at building an authentic relationship. So I'm sending a video. John, I don't know why John Doe is my go-to. He's always my go-to person, my imaginary friend. But I send a video to John and I say, hey, John, thanks so much for accepting my LinkedIn connection request. Love the work that you guys are doing over at Acme Corporation. Just wanted to put a face to the name, and I'll send that video. Then the next step in the cadence is the O. So a week after I've sent that video, I then want to offer value. So this is where I'm reaching out to John Doe and I'm saying, John, when I talk to other executives who also just recently had a merger, they tend to have questions about change management. We recently did a webinar on the 5 key tips for managing change and people management with the recent merger. If you're interested, let me know. I'm happy to send it over. And so then I'm trying to get a response, that interaction, to build that relationship. 2 weeks after that, if I've still not gotten received a response from John, then that last C is for convert or change the channel. So this is now where I'm going to be a bit more assertive, and I'm going to ask John to that discovery conversation. If he does not respond, because now this is a 4 to 6 week cadence, that is then when I would change the channel. So LinkedIn might not be the right vehicle. So then I would look at using email. So that's essentially the TikTok cadence. That's a long response, but wanted to make sure I answered that thoroughly.
Thanks, Liz. Are there any other questions? We do have another question that's come in. It says, what are some of the channels that you've used aside from email and LinkedIn?
All of them. I can go into that more, but I know I just answered one. Does anyone else want to chime in?
Yeah, I mean, there's phone calls, in-person events, now digital events are all great options. And depending on your buyer, if we're in the B2B space, I mean, LinkedIn is a great option, but there are opportunities on Facebook as well, Twitter, TikTok, that platform, believe it or not, with B2B. And are there any that I'm forgetting, Monique?
Instagram.
Of course, Instagram.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And I will add to that. Can you guys still hear me?
Yes.
Awesome. Okay. So I will add to that too, even I call it lumping mail or snail mail. So we've also leveraged video for that. So for instance, we used to do executive roundtables, which were invite only for executives. They were very successful. And one thing that we did, it was a bit more of an investment, but we had a much larger average deal size. And what we did is we ordered boxes. It was like this James Bond theme where when they opened the box, it was a personal video that played. And the video was like, this message will self-destruct. And, you know, in 20 minutes, we wanted to invite you to the secret invite only executive roundtable for other VPs of sales. So there's so many other channels that you can use. Really, for me, why we want to focus on the strategy of looking at the buyer's journey is our responsibility as sales and marketing professionals is to make the buying process as simple as possible and to meet our buyer where they are. So if one channel is not converting, I'm not married to the channel, I'm married to the relationship. So I will move to the channel that my buyer is going to engage with.
Yeah, that's good. All right, well, that concludes our webinar today. Again, thank you guys so much for joining. We recorded the session, and don't forget your homework, your LinkedIn video. You have to send that to Maria. You'll see her email addresses on this last slide. But like I said, we are recording this, and we'll make sure that you get a copy of the recording. So thanks again for joining, and enjoy the rest of your day.